Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the NFDA International Convention Expo. We are sitting here live in the Social Media Lounge, and we are excited to talk to these three wonderful gentlemen about about providing exceptional customer service online and how that can translate back into your funeral home. So let's get started. My name is Sarah Lowry, and I'm a marketing communications specialist at Homesteaders Life Company, and I will be the moderator today.
Thank you. I'm Ryan Thogmartin, CEO of DISRUPTu Media.
Hi, my name is Kevin Czachor. I'm one of the family member owners of ASD, Answering Service for Directors.
And my name is Peter Richardson, and I am a co-founder of Consolidated Funeral Services.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so we are going to get started with our first question, which is, why is it important that funeral homes extend their customer services practices online?
Super easy from a social media standpoint because you can have so many more touches with the consumer, and the consumer can engage when they want to engage. So there's a lot of interaction that can happen online where consumers will prefer to have a conversation, messaging, or private messaging back and forth, and customer service can happen 24 hours a day there.
It's funny, my area of expertise is mainly with telephone answering service, actually answering the phone calls. However, in the real world, making a phone call is not always the best option in some cases for people. So as much as on our end we would love to have somebody making a phone call to us, they would much rather communicate via one of many different means. So it's meeting that person and meeting their needs at the moment that they have it. That's the key.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously we build funeral home websites. And it really, in my view, it's meeting expectations. I mean, people these days would like to reach a funeral home with whatever channel they feel most comfortable with. And really, I know a lot of people probably watching this may think, well, I'm more traditional. I want people to pick up the phone or walk in through the door. But really, think about perhaps you text people. And a text is in lieu of a telephone call. And what's the benefit of a text? You can have a quick dialogue with somebody. You get the fact that perhaps you're looking for if you wish to ask a question. So it really makes sense to provide a way for somebody to just fire off a quick question online, they get a quick response from you, and they're done and they move on. And that's much more comfortable often than picking up the phone and perhaps having to have a longer conversation before you get to the question. So it just meets expectations, and it's really something that everyone should be doing. And if you're not doing it online, someone else is, and that's probably your competitor. So for that reason alone, why not meet that expectation that people have these days?
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So as you kind of alluded to, you're each kind of experts in different fields of communication. So what are your best tips for your line of communication for customer service?
To be real, online has to match what the consumer is going to experience in the funeral home. So if you are perceived online as super compassionate and loving and caring, that's how you should be in the funeral home as well. So authenticity, being transparent is huge when it comes to customer service and being able to engage in a real manner.
One of the keys to this is, as Ryan said, the responsiveness, being there for the person in whatever means they might need. So in the case of my service, it's typically a phone call, but sometimes it's not. So whether someone has a website like a CFS website that has a web chat component to it that allows somebody to communicate back and forth to get to that caller, or I should say to that person out there in the public who may not want to make that call but communicate via the web chat, that is one of the keys to making sure that you're meeting their needs. And in our case, we're able to actually bring a funeral director in real time into that chat if necessary to bring another level of expertise, obviously, that our service may not be able to bring for that particular person. Another key component is if you have a website with a form that somebody could fill out, a contact us form. So many times we've heard the stories of people filling these forms out and never getting a response back, having to send multiple requests for information and finally somebody getting back to them. So one of the keys to that is having a way to safeguard and make sure that somebody's actually jumping on that and getting back to that person. Our company just won the Members' Choice Award here at the NFDA for a feature that we call the Web Form Watchdog. And this is basically an oversight tool that allows the funeral directors to be notified the moment that one of these comes in. And it would notify just the on-call director, not every employee there, but the on-call director, who can then jump on this and assist that person at that particular time. So these are two of the main components that our company brings to the world of the web. Obviously, there's the ability to interact with different tools that assist people, but that's mainly it for the web.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, to expand on what Kevin mentioned there, I mean, so it's great, it's convenient to provide these multiple ways to communicate with the funeral home. And particularly online, a lot of people love that, but it's so important that the online experience matches the walk-in experience or the pick up the phone experience. You want the same response, you want the same quality of response. And in order to deliver that through the website, you really need humans backing up that communications channel 24/7. And that's really what ASD does, obviously on the telephone, and we have a lot of our clients using the ASD web chat on their websites. We have integrated a lot of those chat facilities because they can back you up. You can perhaps take those communications, inbound communications during the day, but you clearly don't want to be online 24/7. And so ASD backs that up. But it's super important if you offer a communications channel, and you should offer all of them, you've got to be equally responsive on all of those channels. Otherwise, you end up creating a bad sentiment if you don't respond to something, as Kevin said. So, we built into the contact forms that ASD hosts, a way for people to get a response immediately. They may not get a complete answer. Maybe it requires the funeral home staff in the morning, but at least they get a response back, and at least they know somebody has that question, and they'll get back to them, and it will be answered. And that's super important.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Those were all really awesome tips. Okay, so our next question is a little bit about the experience from going from that online customer service to the in-person, whether it's a pre-arranged meeting or an at-need meeting at a funeral home. So what is the connection between a good experience online and a good experience in a funeral home?
Well, I think the experience, one, has to equal each other, and two, it has to be authentic, which I think it's really easy to be something online and harder to back it up offline. So I think that is important. But what we find a lot of times with consumers communicating with a funeral home from a customer service aspect is that they always want to talk to a person. So the chat is great to break the ice and they can get what they want, but when it's something like a deeper question, it always goes back to either coming into the funeral home or scheduling a phone call. So a funeral home being available is super important. But there still is that human interaction that needs to happen. So regardless of what is happening online, that experience has to be able to be duplicated inside the funeral home, and a funeral home has to be available and able to have that conversation just like they can through chat.
For myself, I find that the most important thing is setting the tone right out of the gate. You're talking about somebody potentially dealing with the worst experience of their entire life. And the way that starts really can define where you go on down the road with the family. Everyone is a human being, and there are changes, mistakes. This person is not thinking clearly. They may not be communicating clearly. And that may translate to mistakes along the way. Well, if you started out things on a bad tone, that can only just spiral and become worse and worse. So the whole key is early on, gaining trust, getting to know that person in the best way possible, being responsive and being there for them in their time of need.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, to expand on what's been said, I think certainly it needs to be equivalent. I think also the interesting interplay here is that often people will use an online channel to then initiate a traditional channel. And so we have a number of funeral homes, and we were quite surprised actually how well this worked. They asked us to create a simple at-need form on the website that essentially says, contact me, I need to speak to a funeral director. And obviously, probably like you, I'm sure you're thinking the same thing, why not just put the telephone number on the website? And I think a lot of people, if it's at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, some people just feel very uncomfortable calling a funeral home at that hour. So if you have a system on your website that allows them to type in their cell phone and say, call me when you can, you get that immediately because you're using either the ASD system or some other system to get that to the right people all hours of the day. Then you have a traditional dialogue with the person over the telephone. So they're working hand in hand. So they should be comparable if people choose to use that route exclusively. But it's great if they work together. But either way, the communications channels need to be open 24/7. Obviously, your website is, and so the channels need to be too.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Those were all really great tips. So our last question goes a little bit into more of the technology side of customer service that's emerging lately. So what recommendations do you have for leveraging the growing trend of autonomous customer service like chatbots and other AIs and things like that?
I think there are certain aspects where chatbot makes sense, and we've activated chatbots for certain things around like pricing, conversations, and things like that through Facebook Messenger with some of our clients. However, a chatbot is never going to replace the comfort of a human voice or human interaction. And I think there's certain things where, especially in a death or something at need, where a chatbot could be a bad experience versus a positive one. Whereas if someone has a question about cremation and it goes down to pricing, a chatbot is capable of handling that. But there are certain things where human touch needs to happen, whether it's through an immediate phone call or directing that conversation offline to in person. There are certain applications where a chatbot makes sense, but when you're dealing with death, those are more of those questions need to be handled in person versus a chatbot.
Ryan, I couldn't agree more with you on that one. From our standpoint, the more human interaction you can have in a time of need like this is critical. However, I do see that there are some situations where a chatbot would be beneficial. For somebody who is looking for some type of just a simple response back to a question that is asked over and over and over again, that would be a perfect use for that beginning stage of a chatbot. But the key would be having someone there capable of taking it to the next level and assisting that person in a real world scenario basis, that being able to make it personable for their needs. So that would be the key. And that's one of the reasons why the service that we offer with our web chatting actually can bring the funeral director in to assist that person at that particular moment. Because obviously it would be beneficial to make a phone call, but sometimes the person can't do that. Even though you think, for myself, I don't really enjoy using the web chat features that are available out there myself. I do know that there are times where I've wanted to do that because I didn't want to wake somebody up. If you're there with your loved one who is on hospice and going through a very difficult time, obviously, do you really want to pick the phone up and call and ask these questions with them right there? But you want to be there with them. So this is a great use for that you could actually chat with that person and giving them peace of mind, knowing that that person is going to be treated as sensitively as possible and not hearing the difficult questions that you may have to ask or answer for that matter.
Great, thank you. We're living in a fantastic era. I think we're on the cusp of being driven to and from work by our cars, so being able to answer simple questions is well within the capability of processors that can handle billions of transactions a second. So it definitely has its place. And I think when you think about human interactions, you're really looking for for 3 qualities. You know, you want a prompt response, you want a courteous response, and you want an accurate response. And all 3 of those can be started by a chatbot in certain scenarios. I mean, not all the time perhaps, but imagine if somebody says, you know, well, so a death has occurred, please contact me, and your chatbot says, okay, are you living in Ohio or Michigan? And then based on the answer to that, it connects you through to one of 2 funeral directors. That's a perfect thing, you know, to do versus have them call a single number and be rerouted by a human. So there are cases where filtering information and then handling that most appropriately and most efficiently through to the right channel, that's a perfect use of a chatbot. And it's great for somebody who's not using a live-backed chat service such as ASDs, but you know, they have their place for sure, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing more and more of it. And we'll reach the point where we really don't know if we're talking to a human or not. And if you don't know, then you shouldn't care, because you're getting a good enough response from the chatbot that it doesn't matter if it's a human or not. But certainly we do need to at some point drop into the human interaction, certainly in the death industry for sure.
Thank you, guys. Well, we appreciate you all being on our panel today. I think we had a lot of great information. If you guys have any additional questions on any of the stuff we talked about today, please feel free to comment on this video, and we will connect you with one of our experts here to get your question answered.